Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you all again to yet another series of the Gyan Pravah, the podcast series initiated by our very own Sunita Tandulwadkar ma'am. Today, I'm very happy to inform that this is the episode 81 of this excellent series, which she has initiated after taking over as the president of Fogsi. It's indeed my pleasure today to invite our guest speaker as well, who is none other than Dr. Basab Mukherjee. The topic for today is microplastics and women's health, which is a definite concern in today's day. To start off with this session, I would of course like to invite our president, Dr. Sunita Tandulwadkar ma'am, who has been the support system behind all our activities, who has supported us throughout in all our activities, and she has given us opportunities immense. So it's a pleasure, ma'am, to welcome you here, and it's a pleasure to request you to say a few words for this session, which is the 81st episode of Gyan Pravah.
Thank you, Priyankur. Thank you so much. And I'm amazed the topic you chose and the faculty you chose for that is excellent. I'm sure this podcast is going to be a rocking podcast. Uh, Basa, with all these chairperson, the bombarding of webinars on our Foxian was becoming too much intoxicated. And that's why this Gyan Pravah series concept became podcast. One subject, 45 minutes talk. It may be gynac, non-gynac, any faculty, Indian, outside. Believe me, I'm enjoying every day. Initially, everyone asked me 365 days commitment. Don't you think so? It's too big a commitment. But one thing I felt is joining to respect the faculty that the Foxy president came to wish you is equally important. Secondly, I thought, let's do it. What's impossible? 1 year committed to Foxy. But believe me, I'm getting benefited. I am meeting immense personalities, which I would not have otherwise met. They are from such a diverse background. If you hear those podcast series, you will be amazed. From spiritual, political, social, philanthropic, so many people we are. Of course, there are in between academic session also goes on, and I think people will enjoy that as a break. So today, Priyankur, one of the very sincere committee chairperson we know, probably third year, I have seen him working with Rishikesh Pai neck deep in all the projects. And I realized that this man has a future, probably the future leader of Foxy. And that was one of my reason to start the podcast series is every one of you, the committee chairperson, are the future leaders of Foxy. They should come out, they should take the interview, they should get an opportunity, and they should show their leadership skills to everyone. So 11 podcast series which will happen, I'm sure everyone will see the evolve Priyankur as a person, as a leader, and as an educator as well. Thank you, Priyankur, for being such a good chairperson always. And Basap, again, thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming on a Foxy platform to speak on a subject very much needed, but never spoken in our academic sessions all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sunita. Thank you. Always pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sunita ma'am, for being here, for encouraging us always, and thank you for it's always a pleasure to see you at 8 o'clock, because this is one of those years where you get to see actually a president every day, because we know at 8 o'clock you will be there in the podcast session, supporting us, encouraging us, and also inviting our guests, because it means a lot for us as well, ma'am. When your leader is welcoming the guest speaker, it means a lot to us, and we are really thankful and also very happy that just a few days back we had the Mr. Nitin Gadkari as well with us. And that was such a privilege to see a minister of the national minister who is on our Foxy platform. So, ma'am, thank you so much once again for the opportunity.
Thank you.
So we start off with the session today. And
would you
today
like to introduce Basap?
Yeah, ma'am. I will introduce Dr. Basab Mukherjee. So Dr. Basab Mukherjee, as we all know, he is one of the stalwart Foxians. He is a I would say, like, I take him as my elder brother, so I call him Dada. That's what we call in Bengali. And he has been a past vice president of Foxy. He has been the president of the Bengal. He is the president of Bengal Obstetrics and Gynecological Society, and he has done brilliant work in academics and otherwise as well. One of the most loved Foxians, if you could say. If I repeat the words of Dr. Bhaskar Pal, who's the president-elect, he always tells me one thing, that he talks about himself, Dr. Bhaskar Pal, as one of the persons who probably is not loved, but he is probably, people look at him, pata nahi kab daat denge, sort of a thing. He might scold people, but Dr. Basab Mukherjee is one person which he keeps telling is one person who will never scold, always loved, and has the leadership capabilities also to take the organization forward. And I'm sure he's going to look forward to that, and we wish him all the best for the same as well.
Thank you. Thank you. That's so wonderful. Even I will say, and I connect with Basab for another reason. We both are spiritually inclined and we enjoy our spiritual journey when we are doing our academic journeys. Basab, I wish you all the best. And more than you need to become a leader of Foxy, Foxy needs such leaders. So it will be a proud privilege for all Foxians to see such a leader for presiding our organization. Thank you. Whenever you wish to go, we are with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sunita. Thank you. Very good.
Thank you so much, ma'am, once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we move ahead with the topic of today, that is microplastic and women's health. And this is a topic which we all know it's like not a very easy topic, as ma'am has already said, a topic which needs some thinking, but is definitely very, very important in today's day, because pollution is something that we think doesn't matter. Everyone is running behind finances, everyone is running behind money. The world is getting polluted more and more every day, to the extent where we some days land in Delhi and we are barely able to see the next flight which is like, parked right next to us. So we need to take things forward in a way that the women's health, whom we are here to cater for, does not get affected. So Basabda, if I can just start off with the first question, I would like to ask, and some people may not know what microplastics is. So I would like to know from you, what exactly are microplastics and where do they commonly come from?
So thank you, Priyankur. Thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure and honor to be here on this podcast. So let's dive into the topic, microplastics. Environmental health or environmental issues and women's health is a very interesting topic by itself. And in environmental health, we are dealing with plastics and microplastics. So just about something about microplastics, these are small fragments of plastic, if you can put it very simply, of the size ranging from 1 micron to 5 millimeters. So this is something where these plastic particles of a very small size are there in the environment all around us. And to get that more clear, we have to understand there are 500 million tons of plastic products generated every year in the globally. And of that, only 10% is recycled. So 90% of plastic which is produced in the world is not recycled. It goes as a waste. Either it goes into the ocean, which is a large amount of plastic there, or it goes into landfills or in the soil, and that's a large amount of plastic there. And so plastic is all around us, unfortunately, and that is what this entire discussion is about. So microplastic and nanoplastic, there are two terms. Nano would be less than 1 micron, and anything between 1 micron and 5 millimeter size of particles is called microplastic, which is the topic of discussion today.
Lovely. So I think that absolutely clears the doubt in everyone's mind. Beautifully explained, Dada. So the next question that I would like to come up to you, Basabda, is what is currently known about how microplastics affect the human body? Because we definitely know it does. And how do we normally detect these microplastics in the human body?
So the microplastics which we know about or we talk about would include polypropylene, polyethylene, polyethylene terephthalate, polystyrene, polyvinyl chloride. So these are some of the different microplastics which we know about. How do they affect the body? Well, they're all foreign material, you understand. So whenever they enter the body through different routes, either ingestion, inhalation, or through the skin, they would definitely go into the cell, cause oxidative stress, lead to DNA damage, organ dysfunction, metabolic disorders. Immune response would be altered and may also cause neurotoxicity, besides reproductive and developmental toxicity too. So there are varied functions of these plastics or microplastics once they enter into the cellular level, which they will do once they enter the human body. And the reaction is inflammatory mainly, but it also involves a DNA damage and oxidative stress, which would create an important effect on the health of the woman.
Perfect. Thank you, Dada, for enlightening on that. The next point that I would like you to highlight on is that are there any gender-specific concerns with this microplastics?
Yes,
Also, would like to ask you about if I could just add on a little bit in the female, of course, whom we are here to cater for. Does it affect the menstrual health? Is the second part of the question.
Thank you, Priyankur. So I think one part of the question which I did not answer last time is how do you measure microplastics? So how do you know, or how did we know that we are having microplastics in our body? And that we understand is from an infrared spectroscopy examination, where you have different types of infrared spectroscopy, where scientists essentially will look at different parts of the human body and try to see if there are microplastics in it. It's not a regular test. It's not something which you can order from your lab, but it is something which is done on a research level, on a scientific level, and that is how we get this evidence, what we get, and that's what we are talking about. So the next question you had asked about gender specific. Yes, a lot of the discussion today is, of course, on women's health, because we are all primary care providers of women's health. So in women's health, there are effects across the lifetime of a woman. And if you ask us how does it come, then I think we should start a little bit, Priyankur, if I can may, with how does the microplastics come into the body. So there are three routes. One is ingestion, one is inhalation, and one is through the skin. So if it's ingestion, what are the products which we have in our day-to-day life which come through our food and like microplastics and enter our body? Well, they would include a lot of seafood to start with, because the first what we said was a lot of seafood is what a lot of the sea or the oceans is a big resource of plastic, because all the plastic which is generated in the world, a lot of things is dumped in the sea. So sea fish carries a lot of plastic generally, other than that, bottled water or packaged water. That's the reason why we are moving away from plastic bottles to glass bottles. And one of the environmental friendly initiatives that we have also done in our Bengal Obstetrics and Gynecological Society is that we have banned plastic bottles, no PET bottles inside the society. We have a filter, or we have even a UV radiation water, and then we have glass bottles and plastic and paper cups to use, so that you have a very clear environmental friendly atmosphere. The other ways where it can enter your body is also through packaged food. So a lot of food is ordered through packaged food. A lot of the Swiggy and your Zomato comes in plastic containers, and that is where you have a lot of microplastic mixed with the food, which you would be indirectly, unknowingly ingesting. The other things which they mention is even the baby teats, which are there, which you have pacifiers, which you put inside the baby's mouth to stop crying or to make it less irritable. Once you steam them and you try to sterilize them, at that time they release microplastics, and indirectly you're putting it back into the baby's mouth. So there you would be also having microplastic exposure to the baby. So several ways of ingestion you can have these microplastics coming into your body. The other part would be how inhalation. In inhalation, we understand in the air there is a lot of microplastic, and the source is not smoke always. The source is the roads. So the roads, the tar on the roads, and the roads per se are supposed to have a lot of microplastics. So the roads is something which you cannot avoid. So a lot of microplastics will be inhaled on a daily basis. They will go into your lungs. They'll cause an inflammatory reaction and cause different sort of respiratory problems. The other is on the skin. Sorry, just a minute.
Of course, Dada. Thank you so much. You have so beautifully highlighted everything, and especially about EDC. So thank you so much. Please continue, Dada.
Yeah. So about the skin, the next thing is, how does the microplastics enter the skin? So there are two, three ways. One is about the face products. So your face creams and the face washes. These are the two things which would carry some amount of microplastics. So once you really rub it on your skin, on your face, want to look fair or nice or fresh or get the oil off your face, actually you're putting in microplastics into your system. That's one. The second is for menstrual hygiene products and for menstrual pads and tampons, the plastic that you're taking out it from and then you're using, that plastic could also have microplastic, and that's another way where you may be introducing microplastic into the reproductive health system. So women have to be careful that there are several of these things, some which are avoidable, many which cannot be avoided, but these are some of the ways in which you metaplastics can come into your body and cause havoc. So what have the scientists said? On an average, every week, zero point 0.1 to 5 grams of my metaplastic enters the human body. So it's almost like the weight of a credit card, they say, that enters the human body every week on an average. So that's how inevitable it is, and how dangerous it is, and how scary it is that this is something which is all around us inside our body, and we aren't really much aware about it.
Perfect. I think when I took this topic, I thought there was requirement of some bit of knowledge, some bit of enlightenment towards women. But then this answer or this thing that you're putting across is absolutely perfect because it's giving so much of knowledge to everyone. Because things that we should not use, and that is something that I think is so very important. Thank you so much, Dada. I think that's as he said. I think it's very important. These are called in today's day like the EDCs, endocrine disrupting chemicals, and that's what he so perfectly talked to us about. And the main important things, as Basudha has said, is plastics, and that is something that is very important, especially things like plastic bottles which are kept in the car, and we drink the water from that heated water. That is something that is very bad. That should not be done. As he said again, the makeups, because makeup most of the time has got some bit of microplastics, which we have to be very careful about. Third thing is plastic. Most of us initially when microwaves came in, we used to microwave in Borosil utensils, but then since this Borosil started getting broken, we started getting plastic utensils, and heating in microwave in plastic utensil is the worst thing that you can do for yourself. So these are things that we need to avoid, and these EDCs can lead to a lot of problems, like you said, right from microplastic in women's health to it can go up to situation where it can lead to PCOS as well, because this is one of the components where it can cause. Thank you,
So
Dada.
yeah, thank you. So just one point, I think, as you said about EDC,
Yeah.
endocrine disrupting chemicals, like we do understand that microplastics can be coated with EDCs, especially bisphenol A and other ones, and that can cause different side of activity in the human body. So the EDC, the basic thing of EDC is it mimics estrogen, and so there's an increased estrogenic features in the woman's body. So increased EDCs can cause early puberty, can cause PCO, can cause a little bit of endometriosis, can cause breast cancer later because of your increased estrogen
Estrogen levels.
content in the body. So anything with that's how the EDC is related to a lot of endocrine conditions, and that's what we do discuss about. Yeah.
Perfect. So the next question, Dada, is something that maybe both of us, of course, males sitting here and discussing this topic about a woman, whether she should get a makeup done, is something that may not be well taken or accepted. But the next question I need to put across, because this is something that we definitely need to discuss, and that is about what steps can women take at various stages of life to reduce the exposure. This is important. We cannot, of course, I know you want, I think, directly to want to say that you reduce your makeup a bit, it will be easier. But we cannot say that now, probably very straightforward, because people may not like it, but that is something that is true. Also, things like sanitary pads where there's dioxide and which is not something that is good, can lead to vulval cancer, etc. We know, but still we use commercial pads. So this is something that with cotton pads, advent now, probably it will improve a bit. But then I would like to hear from you. What do you feel will be important in various stages of women's life to decrease the exposure of microplastics?
Yeah. So I think the first thing would be awareness. The very fact that you're doing this podcast and you think it's the topic is important enough would have generate some amount of awareness for the viewers. And I'm sure that once it's recorded and it's used later, there would be other people who generally would be more aware about what microplastics are and the effect on the body. So that's number one. So once first is awareness. Second is the consciousness of a person when a person is using a product to turn it around and look at the ingredients. We often don't look at the ingredients. We don't know what exactly it is. We go by the brand name. Oh, Lakme must be nice, or this must be good. Revlon must be ravishing. But you don't turn it around and see what's in it. So if you know what's in it, then you have a fair idea about whether this is good for me or not good for me. And you have ChatGPT and you have Google and you have other guidance which will guide you on what exactly the ingredients, whether they are useful or whether they are harmful for you. The next thing I think is when we use any plastic, usually behind that there is a plastic grading tool. And the plastic grading will give you some idea about what plastic this is. Like as we said, is it a phosphoethanol? Is it Is it PVP? Is it PS? Styrene? So you need to have a fair polystyrene. I mean, so you need to have a fair idea about what exactly the plastic is and how much recyclable it will be and how much damage it may cause. So if you're aware of that, then you have a fair idea about what I'm using. Is it safe for me or not? Maybe some time ago we never used to think about it, but now with the data which is being generated, we are forced to think about it. The next thing I think is data and research. There's an enormous amount of data and knowledge gaps still pending in this area. We know that microplastics are present in almost every bodily fluid present in the body. So that is the reason why, so we know it goes all over the body, it spreads all over the body, but we still aren't exactly sure about measuring it, how much of microplastics cause how much of damage, and which one causes most. And all those things are some knowledge gaps which still have to be addressed over time. Then the health awareness from the public side of view, from the government points. They must ban the harmful plastics. You can't have harmful plastics floating all around your community where people use things and don't even know how harmful it is for their health and then become sick later in life or later life. So those things are, I think, the future and what we are really looking at. Thank you.
Perfect. So the next, I would like to, of course, I mean, for anything today that's, any disease, anything that is coming up, we are talking about probably tools that we can look forward to in probably reducing the exposure, or if there is anything, any sort of a screening tool or biomarker which is currently being used or is being developed. So basically, the question I could put it this way: do you think there are any screening tools or biomarkers currently used or in development, or do you feel that this will be useful in reducing the exposure of microplastics in future in women's health?
So, as far as we know now, Priyankur, there is no direct measurement about how exactly or how much affected a woman or a man particularly is. So all the research which has been done is by taking different parts of different body fluids, from sweat to tears to semen to urine to feces to amniotic fluid, and to check, and they have seen that yes, you have microplastics all over the place. So, but you can't have a real study in the true sense. You can't expose a person to a lot of microplastics and see what effect it's having, because that will be unethical. So what you will really have is you keep on measuring when you have more measuring facilities, and then find out how much a person is affected and how much of disease correlates with the with how much they're affected with. But till that time, till we come to that time, I think the most important thing is precaution and prevention of exposure to these things. Now we know that it is around, it is all over our body, it is in every one of us, and it is causing gradual harm. So this is what we are sure about. How much causes harm, how much is it going to affect, we aren't sure. But this is just one part of the environmental pollution. You must understand there is lead, there is other things, there's pollution, there is mental stress. So there are a lot of other ways in which you can have chronic illnesses, chronic diseases. This is not the only one, but this is something which is possibly preventable to some extent. We haven't spoken about it to a lot of extent. Like Dr. Sunita said, there's still a lot of discussion to do. Foxy, maybe in the years to come, may have a Metaplastics and Women's Health Conference, for all you know. Maybe in 5 years' time, it won't be difficult to see it with the Environmental Health Committee coming up in Foxy. So we may have a lot of things to talk about this subject 5 years down the line, Priyankur, which isn't quite what we are doing talking today.
Perfect. I think that's what, and the way things are, because we saw there were a lot of development happening in the AI front, and ma'am very rightly this time has thought about bringing in a committee towards the future, that's AI, etc., that we can talk about the future technology. So I think, as you say, in 5 years down the line, this is something that we can definitely probably think of, and we might even have a conference or a whole day seminar talking about it only. So, Dada, you talked about the impact of microplastics in the woman's life. You talked about various stages where it can cause problems. So, if I can just ask in short, couple of lines for each of the different phases where you can enlighten about different phases, which what can happen in different phases. So, first of all, I would like to ask you about adolescence. So, what do you think the microplastics effect will be in the adolescent life?
So, as we have already discussed, the endocrine disrupting chemicals has received more attention than microplastics in the recent years. So, what we understand is microplastics can be attached or can be coated with EDCs, and that would, as we said, at higher estrogenic state may predispose to early puberty and PCOS in more women than not. So this is something, again, which could happen in the adolescent stage, which is something which we possibly suspect, or possibly we would think about. The other thing would be in pregnancy. Because there was hullabaloo when you saw about metaplastics in the placenta. So it was quite high in the media. It was a lot of impact of that publication, where a lot of people said that if it comes to the placenta, that means it's going to the baby. And that also was proven that yes, it goes to the baby. And so it can be something which is even transgenerational. So you are actually saving on your metaplastic count, not just to protect yourself, but to protect your next generation. So that becomes very much interesting, more sensitive, and more important. So in the reproductive years, we know that microplastics has been found in amniotic fluid, in placenta, in the breast milk. So it is there. So because of the smallest size, it enters almost everywhere which you can possibly think of, and that's possibly why it's there all over the place. So if it goes from the placenta, then you know its reproductive ages are like that, reproductive years.
So I guess that's why it's so very dangerous, because it's not seen, but it's definitely there and it's affecting. So adolescence, you have said very well about the early advent of PCO. You talked about the reproductive years. You talked about pregnancy and lactation as well. So would you like to say a couple of words about lactation? Or I think passing on in the microplastics in the breast milk is something that is, of course, is something that is also one of the concerns that we have in today's day. But finally, I would like to ask you about the last phase, which is the menopause. Do you feel that it will affect the menopausal age group or the menopausal woman as well?
So we again, it's relatively new, the metaplastic idea of metaplastics in women's health. So we haven't have long-term studies or follow-ups or really to see what happens in the menopause, because you just around 5 years we've come to realize that, or maybe 10 years we've come to realize that this is something which is worth paying attention to. So whether it increases the chance of cancer, increases chance of Alzheimer's, neurotoxicity, whether lung toxicity is a problem, we will never know, because there's so many confounding factors. There are so many other factors which also come into the play, Priyankur. So there will be other environmental problems, there'll be pollution, there'll be lifestyle diseases. So there'll be so many overlapping things. It'll be difficult sometimes to pinpoint that how much of metaplastics or microplastics is causing this problem and how much of other things are. But at the same time, there is, because logically with the oxidative stress, with the inflammation, you would be expecting to have aging process early. You would be expected to have chronic long-term diseases early. You would be expected to have lung issues early. So these are something again which is just conjecture, because we don't have any classical proof. We may not have any concrete evidence ever, because we will not be able to do randomized controlled trials in these cases. You can't just expose a group of people to harmful chemicals and the other ones not. So you will just be able to assess them later in life and see where they reached and what exactly happened. So this is something more of a science, as a scientific sort of research rather than a medical research. But I guess we will be able to get some more clear picture in years to come about how these microplastics are affecting. So they'll be doing autopsies on Alzheimer's patients. They'll be doing autopsies on normal patients in old age, and then they'll see what exactly the brain looks like and all the things. And then that will some research which will come in Science Direct and Nature, and you will feel and Lancet, and then we'll be able to read those publications. Till then, we have to watch the space, but it doesn't look great. Microplastics is something to definitely feature and definitely look into. It's not like Trump saying climate change is a hoax. It is absolutely real, and but how much it affects and how dangerous is it, we don't know. But it is scary. It is scary. You have the same plastic which you're holding, having a glass of water, the same plastic in your body, traveling through your heart, entering into your cells, going through your lungs, just jumping all over the place. Is not something which is in your best interest as far as health is concerned.
Of course, and I think that's what I was just reading one of the articles, which is by one of the renowned cardiac surgeons of the country. So he was saying that he was talking about this microplastics, and that's why he says that the advent of heart attacks or the advent of the MIs have increased so much in the younger age group, because they travel a lot, and since they travel a lot, it's of course the stress that is there. But he says that microplastics is another thing that increases probably the clot formation in the heart, and that is one of the causes for this massive cardiac failures or massive cardiac attacks that are happening, especially in the younger generation or younger population. Thank you, Dada. Now, one of the last couple of questions that I have, and the next one is, I think, very, very important. That's why we are discussing here. It is regarding the healthcare providers' role in educating patients about environmental health risk. We all know that metaplastics are here to stay. We hope that it doesn't stay, but it goes off. But there is no way that we see that that can happen very soon. So, as healthcare providers, what message do you want to give to your patients to tell them that, try to avoid it so that, it's better for your health?
So it's difficult to Priyankur, to start educating a person on environmental health who's not aware at all. At least they understand is pollution is something which is easily perceived. People understand about air pollution, sound pollution, noise pollution. They have some sort of an idea there. But microplastics is something which I think we need to sensitize people coming with recurrent pregnancy loss, coming with unexplained infertility, generalized lethargy, illness. But I don't know what type of population usually you can really address it. You can talk to this up to everybody. But again, who will it be specific for? We are not very sure. But this is something which I think a lot of Fogsi societies would like to take up this discussion in one of their seminars, in one talk, in one of their conferences. In some time, the environmental health chairperson would like to look at this as one of the subjects which she can take up in some of the discussions. So I'm sure that this will come up with time. We need to talk about it to start with, for people to get attention, or people to get some traction about what it is all about. And the more the papers will be generated, the more the research comes out over time, we would be able to pay more attention to it and see it more happening. And then the conscious effort while we're ingesting anything, inhaling, I don't think you can really avoid that. But ingesting, definitely you can avoid. And some of the things, as we said, skin products, again, they may not all be bad. There may be some of them may be dangerous. But again, you can turn always the tube and see what's written on that and try to make some sense of that. And that is the reason why we are trying to bring this in and trying to rope this thing in, thought in, that this may be something which is not in your best interest, harmful for your body. But nobody has told you that before. And that's what we are telling people, that just be aware and just be careful. Because again, sanitary napkins and tampons, of course, they'll take it out from that plastic bag, which it'll be there. But that plastic bag may have microplastics. So if you apply it to your vaginal area and private parts, there may be some microplastics which may enter your body through there. What do? They can't change it. They can't do anything. But nothing else doesn't come in a plastic pack. There's nothing like that. But the plastic pack may have something written behind to know what sort of plastic is there, which is possibly the least harmed plastic. And that is something probably which you can choose rather than choosing a brand, either because it's very favorite or because it's cheaper. But again, you need to go, again, things which are cheaper or things which are expensive, you need to see how good or bad they are for yourself before you make some choices.
Perfect. I think we all are very happy and proud of the fact that this world is advancing. We are technologically and scientifically advancing a lot. But we need to also remember that we still envy our probably great grandfathers, that generation where diseases were very, very less. People used to live like really long because I think they were not surrounded by so much of pollution. Technology has brought in a lot of things like this microplastics that we are talking about. I think that is something that has probably decreased the lifespan of us as well. But then ultimately, you cannot blame technology. But then, of course, there are things that we need to know what are good for us and what are not good for us, and we need to choose and pick what is best for us, probably, for better longevity. The next question would be about, because you have been a past chairperson of Foxy and a past vice president of Foxy as well. So, what public health campaigns or awareness campaigns would you like to see, which would probably decrease the exposure of microplastics in general in the population?
So Earth Day is coming. Earth Day is one of the days where I think if we have a diktat from our Foxy president and the leadership of Foxy, then all the societies can do something useful on environmental friendly initiatives on Earth Day. Similarly, there'll be the World Environmental Day on the first week of June. So that also would be something more than optics, which can be done, which can be incorporated. Maybe you can give the best Fox society a prize who's done environmental friendly activities, which would include planting trees, reducing plastic, and that would be all there. So I think there would be a general, I think microplastic cannot be considered in isolation. It has to be considered with the environmental other pollutants and the effects which are there on the human body. And this is just one part of it, but it's a very secretive, small part which we don't see much. I think that's something where the other things where you can see the smoke coming and hitting your face, you can hear the loud blaring noise of the traffic in Calcutta. At least those are things which you can understand that is bad for me. It's coming and hitting me. It's really affecting me. The food which is oily, which comes to your plate, or unhygienic, which is coming there. So each of those things you can see, you can understand, you can put your hand up and say no. But this microplastics, a lot of it, as we went through the discussion, is not something which you can see, or something which is something very natural, which a normal person would do every day. And then comes the point that, am I correct? Am I saying? So that's where I think some sort of a discussion awareness will be generated. So Foxy, through its leadership, which we have done in the past, I think environmental friendly activities across the societies, which will percolate from the president and secretaries to the respective members. So there may be, and so again, we can have from the environmental health committee something like a position statement or something like a small paper on this, on a publication which can be circulated or online. Now no printing, again that's now printing will be environmental friendly, or put it up on the website, the Foxy website. May use the Foxy handles, social media handles. So just to tell people that there is something called microplastics, and this is something which you have a couple of links with that, where you can generate some sort of information. You can collate the information which is there in the internet at this present moment and try to highlight the areas which have been backed by some good solid journals and good solid research articles.
Perfect. So I think as you said, I think it's more of sort of looking at articles, looking at new research, looking at publishing new data, and looking at research probably to look into bettering the life of women forward. Now, the last question or the last discussion for today, Dada, the last question would be: what's one key takeaway you want women to remember from today's episode?
Yeah. So there's a very so the very fact that what microplastics are, that's what we discussed today. That's what the first discussion we said that plastics of a very small size, and to define the size less than 5 millimeters, more than 1 micron. If it's less than 1 micron, it's called nanoplastics. What is nanoplastics? That's another discussion of the day, but possibly that also is harmful. But we are still looking at microplastics more than nanoplastics, so we'll not go into that discussion yet. Once you know about what microplastics are, how can they come into your body? That's the next question. Next thing. And as you rightly put up, plastic bottles. Please avoid using plastic bottles, full stop. Not for you, you're muted, Priyakur. Not for you, not for your kids. You should not be using plastic bottles. That's question. That's point number 2. Point number 3 is, so what you do? You use either flasks or you use your glass bottles. That's important. Yes, glass bottles can break, but you have to be careful. But you can use flasks also. Well, that's number 1. Number 2, what else can you not use? Face wash, face cream, before you use it, see what it is from. Of course, you may use it. You've been using it throughout your life, but just make sure you use the right product, which probably is least harmful for you. The next thing is about what else about the food wise. You have there is microplastic in salt, there's microplastic in sugar, it's there in milk, so you can't avoid everything. But you can boil milk, of course, before you have it, which most of us would do anyway. You would possibly less packaged material. So packaged material, all your Swiggy, all your things will come in either some plastic containers or those shiny papers which would have microplastics. So you have to be careful when you have your takeaways. So better go to the restaurant and have food on a normal plate rather than have a takeaways and enjoy them, because you don't know what they're in. But of course, if they're on paper, like maybe a pizza, that would be safer than something in a plastic container, like some Chinese food you've ordered where they're putting the curry into some plastics and then you think. So plastic, whenever you see plastic, your antenna should be up that nahi, ye to theek nahi hai mere liye. So I think that would be something which that's the purpose of the entire discussion today. So whether it's PCO, whether it is in pregnancy affecting preterm labor, causing even other issues of low birth weight issues in pregnancy, even later in life, even susceptible to cancers. I think a lot of things are attributed to the microplastics, which, as we said, is one of the many other things which are there, but a lot of it is preventable, avoidable, and it's not something which we see always and or realize. And that's entire idea of today, is to make our audience and make our viewers aware that this is something which is worth discussing and will be discussed more in time to come.
Perfect. So I think, as you very clearly and very vividly mentioned, I think microplastics are things which are best avoided, but unfortunately is there everywhere around us. We have to be very, very careful. And whenever you see a plastic object or plastic thing around you, we need to understand and we need to, raise that antenna that this probably is not the right thing. And that awareness is something probably at this point of time is something that the most that we can do, and probably later on look at the things. But then first of all, realizing that the plastic around you is not right is the foremost thing that we can understand and look at probably. So thank you, Dada, once more for this brilliant discussion. Thank you so much for giving so much of insights on this topic. And this was a very, very fruitful discussion. And I hope that this message will go far and across to Foxians, spreading the message further to their patients so that we together can bring some bit of betterment towards women's life overall. So as Sunita ma'am says, Har Ghar Foxian. So similarly, Har Ghar Foxian, for the benefit of women whom we strive to take care of, is something that we need to look forward to. So thank you once more, Basabda, for this wonderful discussion. And we are really looking forward to through further discussions with you as well in probably future podcast series as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Priyankur. Long live Fogsi. Please enjoy. Thank you for listening.